So my talk, I'm just going to restart the little timer here. Refresh. Okay, so I am primarily here to tell you a little bit about our video game startup. How many of you have been through the expo and have walked past the One More Story Games booth? How many of you have you done this as you walk past the booth because you don't want us to talk to you? Yeah, okay, that's totally normal. We get that. So what we have been doing for the last 3 years is creating something that I hope was going to break open a new niche in the video game space. Our whole talk is about what 10-year-olds taught us about our video game startup. We did not make our startup for 10-year-olds. So, oh, the keyboard works. Okay, so once upon a time, every good story starts with once upon a time. Once upon a time, there were two brave co-founders, Blair and Jean, who embarked on a journey to a place far, far away called Startup Land. How many of you are in startups? Okay. Blair is my husband. So how many of you are crazy enough to work with your spouse? I am. Oh, okay. You two are insane. So Blair and I were together for 17 years before we decided to embark on a startup. His background is far more deep in the game space than mine is. He worked at EA for 8 years, went on to the Evil Zynga for 2 years, and made the Cityville game and the Castleville game, which is a really cool game. And we decided that after a near-death experience, we were going to come back to our hometown and each do the thing that we love. Blair wanted to build a game engine specifically for writers because story is not the focus of a Zynga game, and story is not the focus of an EA game. Is that fair? I think that's pretty fair. I decided to do stand-up comedy for a living. That went okay, and I thought, you know what, I could probably help you hustle. He's the hacker, I'm the hustler. So we have been building this software for the last 3 years, and anybody that's been in software development, 3 years without revenue is a really long time without revenue. You've got to really be passionate about what you do and believe that in the end, all good things will come. So this is the story of our adventure and the side quests along the way. So what we have, in a nutshell, built is a simplified authoring platform. We wanted to build something kind of like WordPress that is easy enough that anyone who doesn't have a technical background could take down the story elements, people, places, things, conversations, and relationships, could actually create a narrative-based game. We wanted to take them from idea all the way through to production and publication. So we're still working on a few pieces of the full production cycle. But imagine a writer, not just a game dev who's gone to college. Imagine a writer who is just a really fantastic storyteller, able to create some of your most favorite story-based games. They no longer need to be a programmer. So we really wanted to focus on reducing the tech barrier. So you can kind of see that's a screenshot of our engine maybe a couple months ago. We make tweaks occasionally. We try to keep it really simple. The intro information, the intro text, and all of the entities that you create. And it ends up publishing that onto multiple platforms, the web, Android tablet, Facebook, etc. But what we really struck us as interesting is we were about 9 months into our company when I said to Blair jokingly, we're going to rent the hallway across the hall from us, and we're going to have parents pay us to have their kids be our QA. And he's like, no, that's not going to happen. Just so you all know in the room, when I say something's going to happen, I make it happen. So the year later, we started with our very first camp. How many of you work with children? How many of you have children? How many of you are like me or allergic to children? So we started with 4 kids, and we ended up doing 4 camps over, and we took breaks in between. We had to week on, week off, week on, because they take a lot of energy because they are so open with their ideas. So this is actually a picture of our first camp. And we really wanted to say, had we made the software 8 months into development easy enough? Actually, no, I guess this would have been a year and 8 months. Easy enough? Would creators love it, and could they excel at it? First bug that we encountered was hilarious. We couldn't have concurrent users. Wow, we had never tested for that because when you're a small dev team, maybe one person would be in and they would be creating the content, but you never had concurrent use. I'm like, wow, we fixed that in a jiffy. So, you know, little tiny things like that. So this is actually a look at the schedule that we do with the kids. And as you can see, it's quite intensive. And I just want to run through it so that you get a sense of what we have been able to accomplish as accidental educators within a 18 to 25 hour time frame. On day one, we take them through a card game called Once Upon a Time. Are you familiar with the card game? Any card gamers in the room? It is a really fantastic game to help people understand how you can construct a narrative with the little building blocks. I like to think of it as like the Lego building blocks of storytelling. And the kids love this game because we teach them about, okay, so this is a person, this is a character, and here are aspects, and here are events that are happening. It gets them starting to think, oh, okay, so if this happens, then this happens, and this happens, and this happens. So we do that as an icebreaker, and we get them to play some of the other games. Well, in year one, we only had the really crappy games we had made while we were testing the engine. So of course, when you set the benchmark up here, even though they were crappy, to a kid, that's like a really high benchmark. You know, we were showing them games that might have taken like an hour to play, which meant that that was a very long production cycle on our end. We didn't have anything to say, hey, this is what another kid made. That didn't happen until year two. So they played our games, and then we started to take them behind the scenes into StoryStylus. And we're like, this is how we make, what's that phrase? This is how glue is made? Sorry, that's an awful analogy. This is how hot dogs are made. So on day two, I want to make this very clear. This is actually the schedule for year one. The schedule for year two changed because these kids are like sponges. I could not believe the difference between year one and year two. Maybe we got better at teaching them, I don't know. Or maybe there was something collectively in the air that they picked it up like that. So we go through story structure and the difference between linear and railroad narratives and branching narratives. You know, nobody really enjoys being railroaded in a game, where it's that one, you know, you think you have that choice, and then it comes down to that one final ending. Now, I will say most of the games that the kids made are very linear. I'll show you an example of a game that we made 2 weeks ago with 7 to 11-year-old girls. And they wanted to have a unique ending to their game, which I will share with you. It creeped out their parents. Then, of course, like all good little game developers, so these are kids that were aged between 12 and 16. They all got half an hour with a game designer to actually do their game flow. Very simple games. Like the goal of the camp is to have a game that is between 5 to 20 minutes long, and we want them to be able to accomplish that. So they get to do that, and then we get them into StoryStylus. We didn't know what the heck we were doing that first year, really. It's kind of embarrassing. I went back when I was putting together the slideshow, I went back to play some of that first camp's games, and they never really were fully complete. And when I go to the most recent camp games, I'm like, damn! It's not because the kids got smarter, it's because the software got better and we got better at teaching the kids. We actually teach them how to do Lua scripting on day 3 in the afternoon. By the time we had rolled into year 2, they were doing Lua scripting on day 1 in the afternoon. It freaked me out because it meant that they wanted to do more and more advanced scripting with their games. It's actually kind of disturbing to see the evolution of storytelling when you're working with such young people. We really want them to focus on conversations because conversations with NPCs should never be boring. Can we all agree that conversations with NPCs should never be boring? Okay, so we really get them to focus about conversation and the impact of their decision making and having a lot of fun. And then at the end, we have them play each other's games. So, oh, look, I had all these slides. Okay, so that's the story. This is a slide for the Once Upon a Time, so you can sort of see some of the cards that they use in the game. And then we teach them the story flow and the basics of game design. But this is where the creativity comes in. So that top slide, I don't know if you can quite see it that well. Rachel was 12 years old when she first came to our camp in 2015. She took 1 week, and she happened to be in week 1, which was the week of all the bugs. We fixed all the bugs, but you know, you get tripped up and you can't make as much because you're waiting for the bugs to be fixed and things like that. I had no qualms about taking money from their parents. It was a win for all of us. So Rachel made a very simple Star Trek game. It was a top-down map of the USS Enterprise. Any Trekkies in the room? You do know this is my secret for exercise and paying attention, right? It's the end of the day. We need some activity in the room. So it was a very simple game. I played it earlier this week, and I thought, oh, okay, Rachel, give it a shot. It wasn't necessarily compelling. I am such a bad mentor. I only just played her game from last summer, 2 days ago. I will tell you, she blew me away. So she had this whole 3D USS Enterprise. You could like walk through the corridors and you were in like the holodeck. Her story just got that much more in depth. It was, you traveled through a wormhole. You're Captain Kirk, you fall through the wormhole, and you're suddenly in the future, and you meet Picard and crew. Very sophisticated versus the Klingon mystery that she had written the previous year. So her ideas got more complex. The evolution of her game got more complex, and it was really cool to see how they change as storytellers. So, okay, this is the ending for this little game. So Microsoft hired us, and I can't believe Microsoft hired us. That was like the coolest thing ever to get that email. Would you come and teach girls in Vancouver? Could we fly you out to Vancouver? The answer is always yes. Could we fly you out to Vancouver, and would you teach girls between 7.5 and 11? I went, wow, that's really young. Because we'd been working with kids 12 to 16. I like that range. They understand story, they can write narrative, they're not scared of computers, a little bit young. What we decided to do, instead of doing solo projects, is we turned them into little micro studios. So we had 5 girls on each team. Actually, it was 6 and 4, but I asked the extra one for help. Could you please help me? We can't do this without you. So that's how we balance out the teams. You've got to make people feel like they're wanted, right? So we had 5 girls on each team. And this is actually, I'm going to publish this game, not because it's the best game in the world. I'm going to publish this game because it's a remarkable game where all of the art was drawn by these little girls. Like I'm talking 8 through 11. It's like refrigerator art. It's the stuff that parents put on their fridge because they have to. But it's really, yeah, somebody, But it's so unique and so cool. And I had a 7.5-year-old girl on my team, and she's like, I don't want to make a scary game. And all the girls wanted to make a scary game. I'm like, okay, what are we going to make then? I want puppies. And I'm thinking, I wish I was on Blair's team because he's got the cool kids. But our game was about 2 puppies that looked nothing alike, and they were brothers. Compromises as a project manager, you know, that's the norm. And so we made this game, and I had all the girls do the art. We struggled through a loss of internet at Microsoft for half a morning and more art. And it was different from all the camps that we had done in the past. Normally, we get them right into the engine. It's like, go! This was very different. So we make this sweet, like Smurf-like world. It's so adorable. It has like cheery music. And then we get to the end of the portals. Now you'll see there are 3 different colored portals. I'm going to explain the portals to you because any game designer has had to make decisions with their team. We got the purple portal, which you can only access if you have given Jose the big bad wolf, Julio the big bad wolf, grapes because he's a grapetarian. So you get the purple rose. You cannot access the portals without that. The red rose is from Super Kitty, because you know kids have to have Super Kitty. And then Super Monkey will give you the yellow rose when you give him bananas, of course. So I'm giving this demo at the end of the week to the Microsoft employees and to the children's parents. And I'm like, okay, so which portal would you like? And the girls were all saying, yellow, yellow. And I'm thinking, so I just want to explain to you parents that I did not encourage what you were about to see. This is jump scare number 2. Paired with the beautiful ambient sound of the creepiest version, Ring Around the Rosie. So this is what happens really when you allow children to unleash their creativity. You know, we've been asked by educators, could we create these educational modules and put them into schools? Yeah, we can. That's a whole different revenue stream of what we're going after. It's not our priority. But I think the magic really is when you have 2 people like Blair and I who say to a kid, okay, so what do you want to do? I want Pikachu and unicorns. So we ended up being Team Yukachu. Compromise, project management compromise. And saying, yes, it's possible. How many of you have been on a team where you're making a game and you have an idea and then somebody says no? I can't believe I'm in a room full of game design. Right, it happens. And maybe you want your unicorns and Pikachus to be in there too. When they are that age, you need to just let them go and have fun. These are things we never considered when we were working with adult writers. We had no intention of teaching children how to use the software. I am 40. I have no pets, no plants, no children. It cannot live in my house if it cannot feed itself. So I have no intention of being a mom. And I like the children when I can return them. And I'm not shy about that. In every podcast and television interview, I say that. I love your children. I love them at 4:30 when they go home. I love the creativity that I can see that comes out of this. So what we noticed was that in year 2, the games got more complex. Next thing you know, because the engine was getting, we take the feedback from kids in the first camp. Oh, by the way, 10-year-olds, brutally honest, this sucks. Your world building is sucky. Your hovers don't work. Oh, this keeps flickering. Oh, it's crashing. And I'm just thinking, this is great feedback. Blair, get to work. And then Blair would get to work with his little helper monkeys. And as we started to smooth out the engine, they could do more and more with the games. In year 2, we let all of the year 2 kids see what year 1 had made. You know what the most powerful motivator is? Seeing what somebody else made, because then you're like, I could do better than that. Absolutely. One of the girls, so in year 2, I also felt confident enough to go out looking for sponsorship money. In fact, I did not want to do a camp in year 2. May rolled around. I've had 4 inquiries just this past week. Are you doing camps again? I'm like, no. Watch, it's going to happen. So last May, somebody asked, are you going to do camps? And I went, hell, no, I won't be doing any camps this year. And somebody came along and said, I can give you an office space for 2 months. I'm going to do camps again. Did not want to do camps because it takes us away from our original business, which is working with authors. PayPal and Shopify were kind enough to put in some money, which allowed us to go out and specifically target young girls. I think we can see from the sea of faces in the room that we need a little bit more gender balance in the games industry. Who's up with that? Good answer, good answer. You can all live now. So we actually went from 3 girls, 19 boys in year 1, 50-50 in year 2. You should all be happy about that. And the reason why you should be happy about that is because now we have diversity in storytelling. That is the driving mission of what it is that we've created. Not about the children. It's about, hey, if I made something that doesn't require you to know a lot of programming, and you come from an indigenous background, or you have a really interesting story to tell, you're from Japan and you've got this really cool family history that you want to tell, great, you can do that now. You don't have to work at an Ubisoft or an EA. That's why the indie industry is a beautiful thing to be part of. Not to say that there's anything wrong with like the traditional industry, but there's something really radical and revolutionary happening in the indie games industry. We've seen it for years with the indie publishing. Now, I'm partial to writers, and I love gamers, but writers are our sole focus, really. Why is my watch? All the Twitter love, thank you. Aww. And where was I? So anyways, the games were getting more complex, and the kids were picking up faster. We had kids that were doing voiceovers by the end of the first week. Blair got the first phone call on the Friday afternoon. Okay, so I've started my second game now, and I got stuck on the scripting element. I'm like, you started your second game. It's Friday. It's summer. Why are you not outside? Because I'm making Dungeon Master 2. So, we saw them doing advanced scripting, and it was just my little proud mama bear moment. You're watching these little ducklings. I've watched them hatch, and they're like, cheep, 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 and then they follow you around, and then they cry when they leave. And their parents just wonder, how is it that you've engaged my child for an entire week? It's because people care about what it is that they're creating. I'm going to take a guess that in some manner of your life that you are a creative person. So maybe that looks like doing pottery or painting or music, or maybe you write slam, poetry, something, or maybe you make games. I never considered myself an artistic or creative person. Even when I was doing stand-up comedy, I didn't realize that writing stand-up comedy is a form of creativity. I have some awesome, killer, romantic haiku that never goes over well when I do it in stand-up, so come find me later. This is an example of a game that is on our website called Attack of the Killer Zombie Cats. You can see that that is Kira's game flow document. Now, she did not complete all of it, but she has completed a 10-minute game, and she did that over the course of a week and a half. We had her back from multiple camps, because when you find a good kid, you're like, come on back, because you make room for the good kids. You play as Barack or Michelle Obama, so you have your choice of avatar. And the world has been taken over by zombie cats, led by Donald Trumpy Cat. So you can see she did some original art. We did have some adult help in there. I like to make sure that no one was going to make fun of her because she had misspelled vile. I mean, phonetically, there are 2 different ways to spell vile. And we all know which one. Nope, I won't go there, Jean. So the idea is that you play through the game and you collect items, you put them into your inventory. So she's doing scripts for counting. Do they have these items? Okay, can they combine these things? We're teaching them logic and creativity. So this was just the first year. Every single kid said that this was harder than school. Every single kid said they were ready to come back. We had a kid who came from Montreal. His grandma drove 7 hours to go get him and drove 7 hours to drop him back off. He came back for year 2. In fact, I think he emailed within a week to say, when's year 2 happening? I'm like, never. And then it always happens. I'm going to show you the next slide because we can actually track their progress in our analytics. There's this one kid, Devin, who never actually finished his game while he was with us. Pretty sure he had attention deficit or some kind of learning challenge. What he did do was draw 55 unique characters that looked like something out of a Clive Barker drawing world. It was so macabre and so disturbing yet hauntingly beautiful. And he created this elaborate world. He is the only kid in 2 years that consistently, week after week, goes in and works on his story. I would love for all of them to do that, but those are the people that you need to inspire because they are the natural-born creatives, and you don't want to squash that. In fact, Blair said to him, don't ever listen to your teachers because they're going to say, stop doing that. And absolutely, we have to be saying, keep doing that. We noticed a huge difference between boys and girls. They like different kinds of games. I never saw a boy make games about puppies except, let's see, there was Colby who did a game about the killer corgis. Of course, he was inspired by the killer zombie cats. It was James Corgi Bond was the main protagonist. And what we also noticed was there is a distinct difference between a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old and somebody who's like 12 or 13. I think we all know that in terms of maturity. And also teamwork versus solo. So I was telling you about when we paired the girls up into these different groups, we made each of them, gave them each an opportunity to be a PM, QA, to be the artist, to be the writer, to be the coder, and they all got to have this little taste of what it's like to create a game together. And again, proud mama bear moment. I was like, you know, there's something magical about this teamwork thing. I personally hate teamwork. And I could tell that there were girls in that class who were like, I want to make my own game. And Blair, he'd be like, soon, my pretty, soon. And we give them all our business cards so that they can contact us. And one of them is like, I'm making my own game now. I'm like, yes, we know. And you can just tell that they are natural and excited to be doing this. So this is a slide of all of the girls from our Microsoft camp that we worked with. And so we had the adventures of Dax and Finn, who are the two brother puppies who look nothing alike, who meet Julio, the big bad wolf, and they convince him to be a good wolf again. And by the way, the only reason he was grumpy in the forest was because people were mean to him, right? A little anti-bullying in there. I might have helped with the dialogue. They were very young. And Blair's had the topsy-turvy Disney dark side of the forest. But really, you know, what our whole goal is to offer something that's simple and make it possible for writers to be able to take that idea from inception, build their story Bible, build their world, get it out there, get seen, and grow so that they can continue to do that. Why would you want to just make one game and stop? Anybody make a game that sucked and they were embarrassed by it? Yeah, play Mulcaster Murder. It's on our website. It's our very first game. In my mind, it's like a C+ game. I got some A+ material now. I cannot wait to like kick that one to the curb. But that's where we all start. And we need to be continuing to work more at that. So, you know, it just starts. It starts with planting that seed of an idea. It gets them planning. You saw the diagram flow. We take each kid through that diagram flow. And I think we can all agree that as adults, if we don't have that map, we will not know where that destination is, and we certainly won't know where those side quests are. Like I said, we didn't set out to be educators. In fact, when people ask us to talk about our business model, I kind of go, and we're doing this educational stream as well, and they look at us and they're like, really? And I'm like, I don't really want to. We're doing this educational stream as well because it's such a natural tool for them to be using and engaged in. So ultimately, what I want is for all of you to know that along the way, in whether you're doing startup or in game design, there are going to be little side quests that you have that are unanticipated. Be well stocked with, you know, beef jerky. Don't ask. And to be open to those opportunities, because, you know, those kids gave us much more honest feedback than adults ever could. Because adults will be nice to you. You'll be like, that's nice. No, I want feedback. That sucks. This sucks. Okay, that's great. Now we can fix it. So if you are doing software development or if you're doing game development, get an 11, a 12-year-old to play your game. I will tell you there are some elements of our UI that I cannot wait to like redesign because it drives me crazy. But they are the ones that will tell you that. Your friends do not love you the way a brutally honest 10-year-old will. So that has been our journey. Now we are spending the rest of our summer working on a game adaptation of a Charlaine Harris novel. For those of you not familiar with the name Charlaine Harris, she wrote the Sookie Stackhouse series that became HBO's True Blood. Woo! So thank you. She has sold 36 million novels. So we're super excited to have Charlaine on board. That is our focus. Despite the phone calls I get every other day, are you doing a summer camp this year? Like maybe if Microsoft calls us again, we will do that. But unfortunately, this year, there will be little inspiration for the children so that we can have big inspiration for everyone. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm open to questions.
anything that you learned that you think could apply to this area of the video game industry?
That's a deep question. So I'll just repeat that for the live stream. Are there things from working with kids that I think are applicable to other areas of the games industry? Everything that we taught the kids is exactly what we all hear as adults that we choose to tune out, which is keep working at it. And like, for example, with Blair's team, their team was Team Shadow. So we had Team Yukachu, my puppies, and then we had Team Shadow. And what we realized shortly after they started doing their game development is, in this instance, they were using copyrighted graphics. They were just trying to make a demo game, right? It's just about getting a game out there. And as soon as we said we won't be able to publish this and no one will see it other than your friends, they got to drawing. And some of their drawings really sucked. I mean, they're 12. But then they'd be like, Markella, redo that. And you could see them sort of like managing each other and like listening. It was uncanny. We were like watching miniature versions of game devs in the room. You know, you had the bossy one who will probably be a project manager in future. And then you had like the super attentive to detail, that's your QA. And it was just, it's very strange. It is uncanny to witness that at such a young age. And it's because we created and fostered that environment first. And I think that's just, it's the leadership that we need in all big studios. You know, I watched Blair. I always say that I was a games industry wife by osmosis. So we've been together for 21 years. He worked for EA for 8. And there were weekends where I went and spent the weekend in his cubicle because, you know, they were curing cancer. No, wait, sorry, they were making a game. And they were putting in that crazy crunch time. That is poor leadership, right? Crunch is poor leadership. So what we try to do, even in the camps, is talk about project management skills, scaling expectations. So if I go back to this diagram here, that is Kira's story flow, and she couldn't complete that in an entire week. You know what? That's okay. She got the main part of the story rocking and rolling. Hundreds of people have played that. We pushed it out during the election. Sadly, Trumpy Cat won. And but we were trying to teach them about their expectations and how to scale that. Does that kind of answer your question? Don't leave me hanging, I'll tell jokes. Yes?
You talked about how some of the kids were very enthusiastic and they're engaged. Did you ever find any issues with kids that were not?
Oh, yes. So what we have learned, especially after the last camp, so we've now run 9 week-long intensives. And so there's a combination of two things. One is we've now adjusted our website so that in perpetuity I will remember to screen out kids, right? Not everybody is suited. This is harder than school, and it's probably harder than some adults' work. What we do is we sit you down from 10 to 4. We're going to teach you something that you love, but by the time we get into day 3, you're going to see who are the people who work hard and the people who don't. So in the case, we had a very young child, and this is going on the live stream. So, so we had a very young child, and by the time we got to day 3, it was over her head. And what we should have done is said on day 1, I don't think this is going to be a fit. Because what we do, we're not babysitters. We are very much focused on the end product. And in fact, we were so focused on that in the first year, the kids told us, we'd like to make friends with each other. I was like, work, make a game. I didn't realize that kids like breaks, but then when we put breaks into the schedule, they never took them. But there are the kids who were a little bit more challenging because all they wanted to do was play Minecraft or Counter-Strike. There was a boy that came back in year 2 who had been used to lunch breaks where, because it was almost all boys in year 1, and they would all play Counter-Strike together on Steam. And he was like, he remembered that. He's like, oh, I can't wait to go and play Counter-Strike all week. And he got to the year 2 camp. He was in the camp with 2 boys and 6 girls. And the girls were working. And the 2 boys, they were like, I don't know if this is fun anymore. And I really struggled because you want to deliver the expectation to that child, you're going to have a finished game at the end of the week. That's what I was paid for. And I didn't realize, it took me a little while to sort of like, it's okay. What he got out of it was he got to make friends, he got to play games, he got to make games, and I had to temper that expectation. And it was not something, as an adult, you're very like, this is the objective, here are the goals, here are the milestones along the way. Kids don't necessarily care about that stuff. So when you're working with younger people, definitely have to temper that. The father of one of the 8-year-olds, which was on Team Shadow, God, if I could like miniaturize her and put her in my pocket. I like the little ones, but just, you know, when they're old but little, I know, I'm weird. And she was so adorable, bright, like she's probably gonna kick some serious tush in the future. And he said to us, who did you sell your soul to? Like, excuse me? He goes, how did you engage her for 5 days? She's 8 years old. Every single day she was up and ready to go to make her first video game. How does that happen? I said, have you met us? Because this is magic making, this is imagination come to life. You are so bought into it that by the end you cannot wait to see this and share this. Like, how cool is it that you made a game that you like download onto their tablet? That's kind of cool. And you got to go skiing for a day on March Big Whoop. I made a video game. So the level of engagement that we've seen is through the roof. Parents have actually complained. They're like, you need to institute more breaks. I'm like, I try. There's like a break in the schedule. It says lunch, and the kids keep working. At 4 o'clock when their parents pick them up, they're ready for their nap. And the parents are just, they don't understand. They've never seen that before. But it has everything to do with how much that kid cares about this thing that they have created. Well, I can tell you it hasn't been easy to do this startup journey. My husband and I are thick as thieves. It nearly cost us our relationship and the company, because I do not recommend working with your spouse. Love them separate from your work, but we have found a happy balance. So he's the hacker, I'm the hustler. We raised over $360,000 because there are other people who believe in the vision that we have been building. And I hope what you take away from this is that creativity does not belong to the tech proficient. It belongs to everyone. And tools like StoryStylus make it possible for us to see more diversity in games. Hopefully next year you'll see my personal project, which is a story about a hard of hearing young girl who was told by her deaf dad and deaf sister she just wasn't deaf enough to belong in their family. And I got some sign language for you, buddy. It's one finger. And, oh my gosh, Gene, stop. But anyways, so that's not a story that you would see created by Ubisoft or by EA. And again, it comes back to that indie game community and the indie voices and people who want to tell great stories. And I hope that you'll come check out our booth. I've got some promo cards for some games. They're all story-based games. I like to say we're for the word nerds. And we're very proud of the work that we do. And we're so thrilled to be working with writers and storytellers. So thank you very much.